The price tag reads $1.19. The can beside it reads $1.44. You take the cheaper one. You always take the cheaper one. The light above aisle 7 hums. A man in a paint-stained jacket reaches past you for the name brand. You move your cart aside and let him have the room. You are 44 years old. You are holding a dented can of store-brand black beans. You have $6,400,000. Nobody in the store knows that. Nobody in your life knows that. Your landlord assumes you are always a few days short because you pay on the last legal day of the grace period every month on purpose. Your coworkers think you are saving up for a truck. Your sister thinks you are one bad week away from asking her for help. You let all of them think it. The space between what they see and what is true is the only thing you own that feels like it is yours alone. Outside, you are a man who clips coupons and reuses the foil. Inside, you could buy the building, the parking lot, and the strip mall across the road. You have never said the number out loud. You are not sure you remember how. Here's how you got here. At 19, you made $9 an hour stocking a hardware store overnight. You slept in a room you rented for $240 a month from a widow who left the heat off. You ate rice and eggs. You walked to work to save the bus fare. You were not building anything yet. You were just afraid of being poor the way your father had been poor, quietly, with the lights turned off and the phone unplugged so the calls would stop. At 22, you opened your first brokerage account with the $400 you had not spent that year. You did not buy anything clever. You bought a plain index fund, the kind nobody talks about at parties. You set it to take a piece of every paycheck before the money ever touched your hands. You did not check it. You decided the checking was the trap. You worked, you added, you looked away. At 26, you got a job driving a forklift at a regional distribution center. $19 an hour, then $22 with the night differential. You kept the same room. You kept the rice. When your wage went up, your spending stayed flat. Every raise went straight into the account you refused to watch. People called you cheap. You let them. Cheap was a word that kept questions away. At 31, you crossed $100,000. You found out by accident, balancing a form for the dentist. You stared at the figure for a while. Then you closed the laptop and went to your shift. You told no one. There was no one to tell. Who would have heard it the way you needed it heard? At 37, you crossed 1 million. You were in the break room when the statement loaded on your cracked phone. 7 figures glowing, between a vending machine and a microwave that smelled like someone else's lunch. A coworker asked if you were all right. You said you were tired. That was true too. You drove home in the 2009 Corolla you still drive. You did not buy anything. You did not call anyone. You made the same dinner you always make. You set yourself a number once, years ago. You wrote it on the back of a receipt and kept it in your wallet until the ink wore off. The number was the amount that would mean you were finally safe, the amount where the fear would finally have to leave, because there would be no room left for it. You believed in that number the way other people believe in a place they will move to someday. At 42, you crossed it. You were folding laundry, a pair of work socks, gray at the heel. The phone buzzed on the dryer. You looked. The figure was past the line you had drawn. The thing you had been walking toward for 20 years was simply there, the way a Tuesday is there. You waited for the feeling. You waited for the door to open and the warmth to come through it. You finished folding the socks. You matched them and set them in the drawer. The fear did not leave. It just got quieter. And somehow that was worse because now it had no reason and it stayed anyway. That was the peak. A man with clean laundry in a quiet apartment, surprised by nothing. Here is what nobody tells you about getting the number. The number does not turn off the wanting. The wanting is not about money. The money was just the shape you poured it into. You spent 20 years learning to deny yourself, and you got so good at it that abundance arrived and found no door it could fit through. You built a man who cannot receive. You can save anything. You cannot spend $1 on yourself without hearing the widow's cold room in the back of your skull. The fortune is real. The poverty is also real. They live in the same body and neither one will move out. So the money sits. $6,400,000, mostly in index funds, some in a savings account paying interest you never spend, a little in bonds your father would not have understood. It grows while you sleep. It grew more last year than you earned driving the forklift. And you still drove the forklift every night because stopping felt like standing at the edge of something with no floor. The cost is small and constant. You notice it in ordinary rooms. Your sister Dana asked you to her oldest's graduation dinner last spring. $40 a plate at a place with cloth napkins. You said you could not swing it that month. She nodded and did not push, because she has learned not to push, and you watched her file you one notch lower in the long, quiet ledger she keeps of who is doing well and who is not. You could have paid for the table, the room, the building. You let her pity you instead. Pity asks fewer questions than wealth does. There was a woman. Marisol. 3 years, the longest you have managed. She thought you were struggling, and she loved you through it, which should have meant something, and did. She talked about a small house, a yard, a dog with a stupid name. You had the money for all of it 11 times over, and you said nothing, because saying it meant the wall came down, and you did not know who you were without the wall. She left on a Sunday. She said she could handle being broke together, but she could not handle the feeling that you were never quite there. She was right. You were behind the wall the whole time, counting a number she did not know existed. You do not have many friends. The few you have think they know you. They know a man who reuses tea bags and drives a 15-year-old car. That man is a costume you have worn so long it has grown into the skin. The real arithmetic, the 6 and the 4, and all those zeros, lives in a place no one is allowed to enter. You used to think the secret was protecting you. Now you are not sure who it is protecting or from what. You eat alone most nights. You are good at it. The apartment is paid through the year. The car runs. The account climbs on its own. By every number you ever wrote on a receipt, you won. You set out at 19 to never be your father in that dark apartment with the phone unplugged. And you are not. You have everything he did not have. You also have the same silence he had, the same unplugged feeling, just with a better balance behind it. So you stand in the grocery store in the hum of aisle 7, and you put the can of store-brand black beans into your cart, $1.19. The man in the paint-stained jacket is gone. The woman with the kids is gone. It is just you and the long shelf and the small decision you've made 10,000 times. You could fill this cart with anything in the building. You buy the beans, you buy the off-brand bread. You count the change into the self-checkout because the machine that takes cards makes you feel watched. You drive the Corolla home. The heater works on the second try. The number sits in your pocket, silent, enormous, growing. It will be larger tomorrow. It will be larger when you are old. It will outlive you, the way it outlived the boy who first decided he would never be cold again. You wonder sometimes what you were saving it for. You still do not have an answer. The drawer is full of matched gray socks. The fear is still in the room, and the money, all of it, keeps growing in the dark, waiting for a man who learned too well how to go without.